The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, my name is Beverly Bolnick, National Sales Manager at NMP, and I would like to welcome you to National Mortgage Professional Magazine's webinar titled Fannie Mae's Collateral Underwriter, Does Your AMC Have You Covered?, sponsored and presented by StreetLinks. I would like to thank all of our webinar attendees for taking the time out of their busy days for this very valuable and informative webinar in our ongoing series of webinars. We have three presenters on this webinar today, the first of whom is Kelly Taylor, Senior Vice President at StreetLinks Lender Solutions. Kelly has 20 years of mortgage industry experience managing national retail branch systems and multiple location call centers, as well as large broker platforms. His management experience and leadership have been instrumental in StreetLinks' rapid growth and success since he joined the team in 2007. As Senior Vice President, Kelly plays a significant role in all aspects of the company, including strategic planning, sales, marketing, operations, and product development. As a mortgage industry leader with a strong understanding of the issues facing today's lenders, Kelly brings a unique perspective to the appraisal management business and remains a driving force in StreetLinks' ability to evolve with the changing regulatory environment. Before we get started today, I'm going to put some poll questions up. We just want to ask the audience a couple of questions. So I'm going to launch that first question right now. It should be up on your screen right now. And the question is, are you confident that your current AMC is prepared for Collateral Underwriter? You could answer on the screen. The choices are very confident, somewhat confident, not confident, or unsure. I'll give you a few seconds to answer, and then I'm going to share the results with everyone. Okay, I'm going to close up the poll right now and share the results. Okay, so 25% of you said very confident, 43% said somewhat confident, 6% said not confident, and 27% of you said unsure. So hopefully this webinar will be able to clear some things up for you. Okay, and we're going to move on to the next poll question, which is, how do you submit appraisals to the UCDP portal today? And the choices are our AMC submits on our behalf, we submit our own appraisals to the portal, our third-party company submits on our behalf, or other. You could vote for that one now on the screen, and I'll give you a few seconds to vote for that one as well. Okay, I'm going to close that one up, and I will share the results with you. Okay, a large majority of you, 52%, said our AMC submits on our behalf. 29% said we submit our own appraisals to the portal. 13% said a third-party company submits on our behalf, and 5% said other. Okay, we have one more question for you, and then I promise you we're going to get right to the webinar. So our next question is, are you or your AMC using an automated tool or scoring model to review appraisals prior to UCDP submission? You can answer yes or no on the screen. Okay, I'm going to close this one up and share the results. So it's pretty split. 51% said yes and 49% said no. Okay, and without any further ado, I am going to turn things over to Kelly Taylor.
Thanks, Beverly. I appreciate it. Today's webinar, as you know, is about Fannie's Collateral Underwriter. And I think based on the results of the first poll question, it's clear that there's a lot of uncertainty from a lender's perspective of what's going to happen when the hard stops come out, when CU gets into full progress. So that's what we're going to try to cover today. Is, what does it mean for the lender, and what processes will it change for you, and what delays is it going to have in your closings? Is it going to change your appraisal process, and what does it mean for your AMC? Those are some of the questions that we're going to try to tackle today. And I'll be the first one to tell you, we don't have all the answers. We have a pretty good understanding. We've learned a lot about this and working with our lender partners in the pilot program that started 30 days or so ago. So we feel like we have some answers and can share those experiences with you. But again, we don't have all of the answers, but we have a lot of them. So what I want to do is introduce the other panel experts that we have today, and what they're going to do is give you a good overview of Collateral Underwriter and then answer as many questions as possible, and like I said, share our experiences with you. So with us today we have Mike Floyd. Mike is the Chief Appraiser and Senior Vice President of Compliance here at StreetLinks. By his title, obviously he's an appraiser. He's been in the industry 15 plus years, has an executive management role in one of the largest AMCs in the country. So he gives us a good perspective from the compliance standpoint. And we also have with us Jason Burrill. Jason is the AVP of QC Technology Resources. He also is an appraiser and is a technology expert when it comes to automated reviews, and specifically regarding UCDP and the Collateral Underwriter. So he's sort of the brains behind the QX automated review technology, and has worked directly with Fannie in the past regarding some of the hard stops. Matter of fact, he was told by Fannie, Jason, don't worry about the hard stops. I mean, you guys have it covered. So I think we have two good panelists here that can help us out with a lot of that. So with that said, I'll turn things over to Mike Floyd.
Kelly, thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you for spending some of your valuable time with us today. In this webinar, we really hope to provide you with information that will help you determine whether or not your current appraisal management providers are ready for the implementation of Fannie Mae's Collateral Underwriter, or if there are steps that you need to take in order to assist your AMC providers in preparing successfully. Either way, this is going to be a team approach. No AMC can prepare completely on their own. There's going to be some give and take needed in order to make sure that you wade through these waters successfully. Other than a brief overview, we won't be getting into great detail describing CU or its capabilities. That would obviously take a long time, and we have to go on the assumption that the participants in this webinar will have a good working understanding of CU and what it's going to do. If you do need more details as it relates to that, there's copious and comprehensive details regarding specific functionality of CU available at fanniemae.com, and they can certainly explain the background of their system better than anybody could. So today we will discuss the upcoming procedural changes, which will be the likely result of CU implementation and the UCDP messaging changes. We will provide you with information regarding certain expectations you should have of your AMC providers, and we'll identify how your AMC provider should help mitigate risk from both an appraisal perspective and a compliance perspective, and how you can eliminate many of the risk flags, warnings, and messages prior to UCDP submission. So without further ado, I hand things off to Jason Burrill. Jason's role here at StreetLinks, one of his primary roles, is the leader of our internal resources department. They have the responsibility of maintaining the QX automated review utility, keeping it absolutely current with prevailing industry trends. So Jason has been knee-deep in Collateral Underwriter and UCDP since their advent. So it'll be good to hear his perspective today. Jason?
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this call. So CU, well, we finally are seeing what Fannie Mae is going to do with, and has been doing with, all of this appraisal data from the implementation of UAD and UCDP. As previously mentioned, CU is Fannie Mae's model-driven proprietary risk assessment review tool, which Fannie Mae has been using internally for several months now. The CU rule set will be implemented for all UCDP submissions as of January 26th of 2015. Its stated purpose is to identify appraisals with heightened risk of property eligibility, policy compliance violations, overvaluations, and appraisal quality. Additionally, 21 proprietary messages, which have been in the past, warning messages, will now become hard stops. These messages will require manual override or further investigation by the lender client or AMC. With the implementation of CU, there will be 112 new CU proprietary warning messages. These messages are currently set as automatic overrides. The AMC and the lender will see these messages on the Fannie Mae SSR reports. The lender will also see these messages in the CU web interface. At this time, your AMCs will not have access to the web interface. So, what does this mean? Sometimes your appraisal is going to be right and CU will be wrong, and vice versa. Basically, Fannie Mae is going to utilize the data that they have been gathering from appraisal reports, past and future, that have been submitted to the UCDP portal. They will scrub each appraisal submission for content integrity, information against the appraiser's body of work, and his or her peers' work for consistency. Appraisers can help themselves out with their own body of work by using appraisal software utility that is available in all major appraisal provider forms. This utility prompts and allows the appraiser to import or export comparable data if the appraiser utilized that comp in a previous report. However, if new information about the comparable is uncovered after the appraiser has already utilized the comparable, a comment in the appraisal report should be provided. So let's look at a real-world example. An appraiser initially uses a comp in an appraisal report and discloses that the basement is unfinished. The appraiser looked at the MLS, researched public record, maybe called and left a message for the realtor, but maybe didn't receive a return phone call from that realtor. The information available to the appraiser showed that that property, that comparable, had an unfinished basement. Fast forward a month later, the appraiser finds that same comp actually has 1,000 square feet of finished basement. The MLS sheet may have been updated. The appraiser may have finally reached the listing realtor and the realtor disclosed this additional information. Whatever it may be, the information has changed for the appraiser. The appraiser uses that same comp in a new report. The appraiser should report the comp's basement finish correctly and disclose in commentary the new information was provided to the appraiser as of a certain date. Now, the appraisal report will still receive a message in the SSR report. So the client or the AMC will look for the comment to explain the discrepancy. Next, we have evaluation risk. So if the appraiser content is accurate, did the appraiser choose the best comps and adjust those comps appropriately? Remember, this risk is based upon comparing the appraiser's comps and adjustments to additional sales and adjustments based on the CU model database. It is designed to assist the lender in understanding the factors which contribute to the individual risk score and risk flags, and designed to direct reviewers to specific aspects of the appraisal report that may warrant further attention. There will be variances, as the model is not replicating the appraiser's defined neighborhood and is instead looking at neighborhood census block groups. Remember, CU only fires warning messages on 15 of the 32 rows or fields in the sales comparison approach grid. So you will still need a QC process to verify all of the additional information provided within the appraisal. So down to our key components of the appraisal assignment. 1, the appraiser's reconciliation of the data presented in the appraisal report. The question is, are these most relevant comps given the most weight in the appraiser's value conclusion? Number 2, the validity of the appraiser's adjustments to the sales based upon CU's statistical modeling. 3, the appraiser's comp selection based upon Fannie Mae's extensive database of properties and their regression modeling. Do there appear to be other sales that are representative of the subject property? And 4, the integrity of the data presented. Have the physical attributes and or descriptions of the subject property and comparables been accurately reported? And Mike, I'm going to throw it back to you now.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. So Jason has given us the basics of CU. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about its likely impact. And in doing so, we should understand that the impact of CU is going to be highly dependent upon how the lender decides to incorporate it in their process. And there are seemingly endless possibilities for that. For example, while it's not recommended, a lending institution might feel that their current systems and processes are sufficient. And incorporation could include manually overriding every hard stop and ignoring all of the messages. Or a lender might take it to the other extreme and decide that they're going to add vetting of all CU findings, all messages, all risk flags, and all hard stops to their pre-existing quality control analysis that they're doing today on every appraisal. Or as a compromise, a lender could decide simply to use the risk scoring that is available from CU in order to triage their files that require greater scrutiny within their underwriting process. Regardless of the choice, identifying how to leverage your AMC relationship to assist in efficiency of these processes will be the key. For example, if your AMC is not delivering your appraisal through the portal on your behalf, how will the AMC obtain the warning message feedback? Do they have a process for you to communicate this information effectively and quickly back to them so that they can work with the appraiser to get the messages mitigated? If your AMC is delivering your appraisal through the portal, are they set up to predict when warning messages might trigger and to proactively ensure that they have been addressed in the appraisal report prior to portal submission? These questions bring us to some of the best practices that you should expect from your AMC provider to assist you with these challenges. So first, your AMC provider should be able to provide robust reporting regarding all of the CU messages. For example, if they are responsible for delivery through the portal, they should have the ability to collect messages from the SSR for statistical analysis. If your AMC is not responsible for report delivery, they should have the ability to provide similar reporting through tracking and auditing of any post-delivery stipulation requests that they've received from your underwriting team. While they won't be able to physically analyze the SSR reports in those situations, they should still be able to track any requests that they've received from your team in order to make revisions or provide further analysis and substantiation within the appraisal report. When your AMC is responsible for portal delivery, the type of reporting should include the most common warning messages, risk flags, and hard stops being found that impact your book of business through that AMC. Additionally, the AMC should be able to provide information regarding how individual warning messages and hard stops are being handled by their team in general and all the way down to a transactional level. For instance, transactional reporting could indicate the specific language or analysis that the AMC's QC process noted within their review of a particular appraisal report that satisfied the warning message or the hard stop in question. Based upon the aggregated data from the reporting process, the AMC should be able to provide feedback regarding possible add-ons to their QC process, which could help to alleviate the impact and the frequency of the most common or most burdensome messages that you are receiving. The transactional reporting and the QC feedback combined would then allow the lender's underwriting leadership to determine if the AMC's QC process is meeting their particular expectations regarding the level of detail and analysis that they feel should be required within the appraisal report in order to mitigate the concerns posed by warning messages and hard stops. Finally, the AMC should provide specialized CU training for their staff members who will be responsible for working with the appraiser or working with the lender's underwriting department to verify that warning messages returned have been appropriately addressed. Other responsibilities that your AMC should be prepared to handle would include maintaining a rigorous QC process that covers as many of the CU public and proprietary rules as possible. important to understand that CU as a tool includes both rules-based and model-based assessments of the appraisal. So, for example, in a situation where CU identifies a message that only one of the appraiser's comps has an adjusted sales price that supports the value opinion, that would be a rules-based assessment. There's no analysis that has to come from the model in order to determine the applicability of that assessment. Whereas a model-based assessment would be something along the lines of the model predicts that the bedroom count adjustment that the appraiser has made is larger or smaller than what other appraisers in the same marketplace seem to be making. So the QC process of your AMC provider should be robust enough to anticipate nearly all of the CU feedback that will be received from that more basic rules-based assessment. And that process should have the ability to improve this functionality over time as more and more of the SSR data that they can glean from the reporting is analyzed. So they should be leveraging all of that information to identify rules that they don't currently test the appraisal against in their QC process. As a result of this QC process, the AMC should be able to ensure that the appraisal content satisfies warning messages and hard stops that fire based on these rules-based assessments prior to even submitting the report through the UCDP portal, because that should be part of the QC, the pre-delivery QC process of the AMC. While any QC process is unlikely to have the same functionality regarding the model-based rules and the data repository-based rules within CU, a QC process from your AMC should still have the ability to predict when the appraisal content would dictate that an additional analysis or additional commentary may be necessary in order to satisfy potential model-based feedback. This is something that the AMC's QC process should still be able to do even prior to submission to the portal. After delivery, the AMC should be prepared to respond to all CU feedback, including the data integrity issues that could not possibly have been discovered prior to submission. We're talking about those things Jason identified, such as the appraiser misreporting a feature or changing a feature in a comp that they've used in a prior appraisal report. Finally, you should determine if your AMC has the ability to manually override hard stops based upon business rules that you can provide to them. These business rules should also include instructions for hard stops that require escalation to your staff prior to overriding. So here's an example of a hard stop message that your AMC should be able to anticipate, ensure that the appropriate commentary exists within the report, and override without any feedback from you or your team. This message will appear on an SSR anytime the model notices that one or more of the listed negative housing trends has been denoted within the appraisal report. Since the model can't read the narrative text, it assumes that the commentary doesn't exist and posts the hard stop. As long as the AMC's QC process has functioned properly, this commentary should already be in the report, leading to an automatic override of the hard stop. So now we have an example of a situation where you may want your AMC to escalate to your underwriting team prior to performing any type of override. While the AMC's QC process should have anticipated that this question may arise and have prompted the appraiser to include commentary about possible hotel characteristics observed during the inspection of the project or the unit in question, the existence of that commentary may not ultimately ensure that the project is eligible. If the appraiser has described any features that would be characteristic of a hotel, or if the condo project legal documents were not readily available to the appraiser, the eligibility of the project may not be discernible, regardless of the amount of commentary the appraiser has included, until the project is fully vetted by the underwriter. Let me give you a prime example. Let's say the appraiser inspects a unit in a building and sees no evidence of hotel amenities, but the underwriter's review of project documents, which were not available to the appraiser, shows that one of the neighboring buildings is also part of the condo project and does include hotel characteristics. Since the underwriting review of the project documents will ultimately rule in this situation, the AMC should have a plan in place to effectively communicate this information to the lender to ensure that the appropriate information has been reviewed prior to them overriding the message and potentially implying to your underwriting staff that the project is eligible.
So what you're saying basically, Mike, is that you need to have a relationship with your AMC to where they're more of a partner now. So hard stops are going to fire. There's going to be a bit of a learning curve here then. So as you go through this process, you need to have a relationship with your AMC to say, in this situation, if the commentary supports overriding this particular hard stop, move forward with it. But in these scenarios, don't send to us. Let us make the call on something that's more sophisticated. It's not just a carte blanche, send it in and see what happens type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see a lender maybe even giving their AMC instructions to manually override every hard stop, but that would only be with the understanding that their group, their underwriting group, is still going to vet those messages. They may want a clean SSR, even when they may ultimately determine that the property is ineligible and they're not going to make a loan.
So if I'm a lender and I'm having my AMC override hard stops for me, I better make sure that I have an AMC that has sophisticated QC process and the net backing to make it stand up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
All right, Jason, can you discuss the likely process flows and how they may impact the efficiency levels in terms of the lender and AMC interacting together in this process?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. So what are your UCDP delivery options? We're going to take a look at two of the most common options. So the slide that we're looking at now is the first example. This is where the AMC is going to submit the appraisal report to the portal on your behalf. You're going to see that the appraiser is going to send the report into the AMC. The AMC is going to run a quality check. There's a question mark there because since we don't know everybody's policies, you may not have your AMC be running some type of quality control check, or you may be doing it yourself, your AMC may be doing it. So if your AMC does that check, your AMC is going to submit the appraisal once they've reviewed the report to the UCDP portal. If they receive a successful submission, they're going to send it off to the client. If they receive an unsuccessful submission or any messaging that the client would like further clarification on, the AMC is going to send the report back to the appraiser. The appraiser is going to send the report back into the AMC. The AMC is going to check the report again, do another quality control on it, make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and then the AMC is going to submit it to the UCDP. At that point, successful submission, we're going to deliver it, the SSR and the appraisal, to the client. Next option is the other side of the coin, where the client/lender submits the appraisal to the UCDP portal. So same way, appraisal is going to come into the AMC. The AMC may or may not do a quality control check. It all depends on the policies between the lender and the client and the AMC. Now, once the report is reviewed, it's going to go to the client. The client may do their own review. They may just submit it directly to the portal. Client's going to receive the findings. Successful, they're going to keep moving it through the process. If it's unsuccessful, or if they need clarification on a couple of CU messages, they're going to send it back to the AMC. The AMC is going to get those requirements. They're going to send them to the appraiser. The appraiser is going to vet them, make changes where needed, or comment as to why there's discrepancies, and then it's going to come back to the AMC. The AMC is going to forward it on after they've done their review of it to the client. Client's going to review it, submit it to the portal, get a successful submission, and move the file on through the process. Next one. So in either process, it's important to be in talks with your AMC about who is responsible for what messaging and who should be notified if a potential concern arises. Make sure you and your AMC have a policy around the CU review tool. We have been fortunate. We've been analyzing CU messaging for a few clients that are currently testing CU. And we've been looking at some reporting on those SSR reports that we've been getting back from these clients that are in this test pilot. And on average, we're seeing 2 to 3 messages per SSR report that's coming back in. Now, one of those messages is message 1000, which is going to be on almost every single SSR report, and that's going to be your risk score, the 1 through 5. Additionally,
And just to highlight that, I mean, that's surprising when I heard that. I expected when I first heard about this, oh my God, there's going to be, you know, another 20 or 30 or 40 messages on the appraisals. It's going to blow things up, and what are we going to do? And expecting, you know, the sky is falling, and it's 2 to 3 more questions was the reality of the pilot testing that we've done.
yes, so far, based on the reporting we've been able to get from our test clients.
Yeah, that's not near as bad as that would be. That's good.
And Jason, it's safe to say that process flow number 2, where the AMC is not delivering to the portal, safe to say that that's a little bit less efficient in terms of how the AMC and lender are going to interact in this process. And so it's even more important in those situations to have your plan in place with your AMC regarding quick communication of any of the messages that you want to be mitigated without delay, because obviously that has a significant opportunity to impact turn times. If you're basically putting a whole new intermediary kind of in between the process between the lender and the AMC.
Absolutely. So additionally, we've seen an average risk score in the reporting that we've seen from the testing files through our test clients, that the average CU risk score is around a 2. Obviously, there's anything from a 1 to a 5, all combinations in between, and then you have your 99 score, which is they weren't able to. So,
And 2 is low risk, 1's the lowest risk, and 5's the highest risk. So 2 is pretty solid.
2 solid, but you still want to review everything that you're getting. So look, to be honest, when we first heard about this tool, just like you, we envisioned the worst. January 26th is not the end of the world. Based on what we're seeing, there is no reason to overreact. With the right systems and processes in place, you can reduce your CU risk. Mike, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, you've got the compliance guy as part of the webinar, so that means you have to listen to a little bit of my rant about appraiser independence here. So the main compliance concerns that CU and the new messaging is going to bring about, has to do with maintaining the objectivity of the appraisal process and the appraiser's independence. We have to recognize that we can't just assume that the appraiser is wrong and CU is correct. And in remembering that, the expectations that your AMC relays back to the appraiser have to be careful to be intended to elicit proper support for conclusions when contradictions exist, or revision only when the appraiser has determined that they've actually made a mistake. As Jason had previously mentioned, Fannie Mae recognizes that CU may not always be definitive. It's informational. For example, their statistical modeling uses census block groups as their best estimate for neighborhood boundaries, because defining neighborhood boundaries is an extremely difficult process that typically only a local appraiser with experience within a particular market can actually accomplish. However, Fannie Mae had to choose something as a basis for their model to work on, which they recognize may not always accurately reflect the appropriate neighborhood. Therefore, conflicting market trend or adjustment information between CU and the appraisal could be due primarily to the fact that the comparison that the model is making is not apples to apples compared to the neighborhood that the appraiser has defined, which would occur whenever a real estate neighborhood actually comprises multiple census block groups, or maybe even only a portion of a single census block group. So you can't assume in that instance that the appraiser's analysis is incorrect. You simply have to go back to the appraiser and ask them to provide further substantiation for the conclusions that they've drawn in their report.
Yes, I know on when Fannie had the call regarding CU explaining it, I think they had some good examples in there, but they made a clear point that they are still going to buy loans regardless of the risk score, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And you just made the point. So a higher risk score doesn't mean it's a bad appraisal. A higher risk score just means there are some anomalies, there's something different in this appraisal that has to be commented on. Doesn't mean the appraiser did a bad job. It might be the best appraiser in the history of appraisers. They just have to have some additional commentary regarding whatever flags fired and then move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the important thing to remember here is that CU can't read the appraiser's narrative and analysis. They can read the field forms, or the form fields. So CU doesn't know if the appraiser has provided substantial analysis to explain or mitigate any of the contradictions that are found between CU and the appraisal. So you're exactly right. An appraisal with a 5 risk, because of the appraiser's additional analysis and narrative, could be one of the best appraisals that have ever been written. Doesn't change the fact that based on the model, it has a risk score of 5, simply because that means it's going to require a lot more analysis in order to justify the appraiser's conclusion.
So the reality is the onus is still on the lender to underwrite the appraisal, be comfortable with what the appraisal says, and make the decision based on all the characteristics of that particular file, and nothing has ultimately changed other than now Fannie's saying, hey, here's some risks that we're looking at, you make your decision. Here's what we're looking at.
Absolutely. And to give you a little bit more detail on that, I'll talk about one of the situations that has been pointed out by the folks at Fannie Mae's CU team when they've talked about some of the limitations. So even for seemingly objective errors like gross living area being reported differently from one appraiser to another for the exact same comparable transaction, you have to remember that the minority may not be incorrect. Fannie will tell you a story of a situation where they had 23 appraisers who had used the same comp in an appraisal report. All 23 of those appraisers had reported the gross living area of that comp to be the same thing, the same number. Lo and behold, they get a 24th report where an appraiser has used that comp, where the gross living area of the comparable property was reported differently. Now, in that situation, the lender is going to see a warning message.
Yeah, the last guy's wrong. How could he be wrong?
Well, I mean, they're going to receive a message that the information has been reported statistically different than what other appraisers have said. But it doesn't necessarily mean that last appraiser was incorrect. In fact, in this instance, what they found was that the last appraiser, who had the different GLA statistics, had actually done additional due diligence and found that part of the gross living area that was being reported by the real estate agent was actually unpermitted area within an attic and needed to be separated out from the main gross living area when they were reporting it in the appraisal report. So technically, only the 24th appraiser did it right, but it doesn't change the fact that until the model gets data sufficient to show that the right appraiser is in the majority, every appraiser that does it right in that situation is going to get
the 25th guy does it the right way and he's wrong, or we'll fire again.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. And so this is an important concept to understand, that if you go back to the appraiser with the expectation that they're going to match whatever the CU findings are, you might be promoting you might actually be promoting the appraiser to include the wrong information in their appraisal report, which obviously that's not the intent. And appraiser independence requirements would tell you that you're going to have to leave that kind of stuff up to the appraiser's judgment.
Yeah, right. You certainly can't say you have to change it because.
That's right. That's right. So review the appraisal for pre-existing narrative, which may explain any differences between the appraisal report and the CU model. Your AMC should be able to do this, and they should be able to report that narrative to you on a transactional basis to help you to understand when the appraiser has mitigated the warning message or the hard stops. A couple of the things that you might pay particular attention to here would be attribute characterization, view, and location. You know, there's going to be situations where appraisers interpret the nature of a property's view and location. It could be highly disparate from appraiser to appraiser within the same area. Appraisers are really just getting used to analyzing views and locations based on a stagnant point rather than in comparison only to a particular subject property or a group of comparables. So, you know, what's going to be important here is when the model reports back that the appraisal's view is being reported differently than other appraisers, you're going to need data from your appraiser in order to mitigate that situation. They're going to need to provide their analysis that shows that their categorization of the view, location, quality, or condition is appropriate. So it's super important to remember that an appraiser cannot mitigate every item signaling that there may be elevated risk associated with the property. Your AMC's GC department has to understand the messaging within the SSR or in the CU feedback that identifies property eligibility issues versus things that would be more of appraisal deficiencies. For example, if an appraiser identifies that there are features of the subject property that are atypical or non-conforming to the marketplace, well, if you read through Fannie Mae's guidelines, if certain parts of the property are considered to be non-conforming, the property is ineligible for GSE financing. So there isn't anything an appraiser can do to mitigate that. You can go back and ask the appraiser for 100 additional comps that are more like the subject property, but if CU is telling you that we don't have an appraisal quality problem, we have a property eligibility issue, it's not something the appraiser can mitigate. It's something that the lender needs to determine whether or not that loan is appropriate for sale to the GSEs based upon the characteristics of the property. This is going to be found for any type of significant feature that is atypical enough that the appraiser can't bracket it or is basically saying is non-conforming to the marketplace. So pay particular attention to page 1 of the appraisal, of the URAR at the bottom where the appraiser talks about overall conformity to the marketplace. If the appraiser is unable to provide comps with similar site size, similar gross living area, and CU doesn't come back and say, hey, we found sales that were more similar in these features, so that's not going to be a situation where an appraiser can necessarily mitigate that the property is atypical. And finally, appraisal construct issues that may have already been addressed by the appraiser. Comps are distant, old, highly dissimilar, requiring large adjustments. Again, if the CU findings does not come back and say that other comparables were identified that that they believe the appraiser ignored in order to provide less similar sales as comparables, that's not really an appraisal quality issue. That ends up being a property eligibility issue. So with all of that said, I guess I'll turn everything back over to Beverly for some question and answers.
Okay, great. We have a lot of questions coming in. You guys gave a lot of great information. So I know that we're definitely not going to be able to get to all of them. So anyone who's asking questions, and if you have them even while we're doing Q&A, please keep asking them. I will be sending all of those questions over to StreetLinks, and someone will get back to you in the next few days to answer your questions. Okay, so the first question that I have here says, do you think it is important for a file to undergo quality control before it goes to the portal, or is it acceptable to put the file through QC after you get the CU score?
I'll take that one. This is Kelly. I think it's up to the individual lender on what their preferences are, but in my opinion would be you absolutely want to have it QC'd before it goes to the portal. I mean, just from a couple standpoints. If I'm the lender, I don't want to just be throwing anything up to Fannie and let them start keeping track of, gosh, this lender always sends up, I see a lot of 5s from this lender to start with, or 4s. I'd rather not be that person and give them that data. I'd rather QC it first, but from a turn time perspective, I'd rather use an AMC right up front that QCs it up front, goes back to the appraiser right when it's fresh in the appraiser's mind, hey, resolve these couple of issues, and then send it up the line to the UCDP, get your clear SSR, and move it on down the road. That's the process that we have done in our testing so far, and it has, I don't want to say a non-event, but it's gone very smoothly anyway for us to do it that way. QC it when we come in, we anticipate what their questions are beforehand, get those resolved, send it up, and the appraisal goes on its way with really no change in the, or much change in the turn time. So my opinion would be very much so QC it up front. It's going to save you time, effort, energy, pain, and just the better way to do it in my opinion.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, there isn't any reason why an AMC couldn't be using an automated review utility that tends to mimic the output of at least the rules-based assessment of CU. So it's nonsensical to not have that process run early on enough, as you pointed out, for the appraiser to get those things mitigated before you have to send it to the portal, have those results come back, and then put a whole other layer into the process.
That's a good point. So actually, there's tools out there where the appraiser could actually run that at their desktop that anticipates what the portal is going to review anyway. So they could run it at their desktop and then send it in, and just makes it that much faster as well. So that's a good point.
Yep.
Okay.
Next question.
Our next question, are you expecting to see a large increase in revision requests because of the new hard stops?
Well, that's an easy one, so I'll take it. Honestly, when I first heard about CU, the first thing that went through my mind was exactly like Kelly had indicated, that our QC process is going to grow by about 25 or 26 messages, or 25 or 26 key points on every report. That basically we're going to have to hire 60% more staff just to keep up with it. But the truth is, do we expect to see an increase? Yes. There's no doubt that any time a new tool provides more information, that's going to result in an increase in revision requests. However, based upon the data that we've been able to collect from the pilot program, I can't say that a large increase would be anticipated. It seems that as long as you're engaging the best appraisers within the marketplace, the ones that already do a really good job of providing consistency in their data, from comp to comp, from subject to subject, and appraisers who are very conscientious about providing detailed explanation and support for their conclusions, I don't think that you're going to see a significant increase in revision requests. You're going to see, on average, you're going to see a couple of messages that need to be mitigated on the SSR, and that's about it. So, from experience, that's what we're anticipating at this point.
Okay. Just so everyone knows, all the attendees, I'm getting a lot of questions. They're asking if the PowerPoint presentation will be sent out. We are going to be sending out a copy, a PDF of it tomorrow, so you will be able to review that. Okay, our next question. What is the single most important process or tool an AMC or lender should be using to get ready for CU?
This is Jason. I can take that question. So really, the client in the AMC is the first line of defense with the appraisal. So you have to have some type of review process on that appraisal. Look, you don't want to blindly put data into Fannie Mae's database that's errant. So any rules-based, some type of automated review utility that you can run to verify as the majority of that information in that appraisal report is correct, the better off you're going to be. You're going to see reduced messages, and you're going to be purifying that CU database and hopefully not putting errant information in that. And so my recommendation is continue to do some type of QC, get an automated review utility that can provide you instant feedback and can work along with your AMC's QC process or your own QC process and review that appraisal for consistency and accuracy before you go submitting that appraisal report into the UCDP portal.
Okay. Our next question, regarding override codes, who is inputting the override code, the AMC or lender? Why?
Well, this is Mike. I'll take that one. I guess it depends upon the lender's preferred process. When an AMC is the delivery vehicle through the portal, they should certainly have the ability to use those override codes and override the hard stops. Certainly, the lender is going to want to determine a certain set of rules behind that. Do they want every hard stop overridden? Are there certain messages that they don't want the AMC to override without authorization or approval from some type of escalation process? But for efficiency's sake, if your AMC is delivering to the portal, they should have the ability to do that override if you would like them to, and it just is going to take a little bit of conscientious planning regarding the business plan that you want them to follow in regards to each specific hard stop.
So lenders should just, as the hard stop comes up, look at it and make their own determination, and then over a period of however long it takes to get every hard stop, then that's how they develop that?
Well, they should know what all the hard stop codes are going to be, and their internal appraisal experts should be able to judge, are these the types of things that, that an AMC with a knowledgeable QC staff, are these things that they can gauge whether or not the appraisal report has, whether the appraiser has sufficiently mitigated these concerns. And then one help to that would be whether or not there's reporting that the AMC provides in addition to the appraisal report that kind of explains why.
Yeah.
Here's specifically why we overwrote this
I think I'd want that.
hard stop. Absolutely. Yeah. So to your point, they should be able to go through these codes. Are not, Fannie Mae's provided them for everybody to see. So they're common knowledge. They just need to go proactively through them and decide if there are those that because there's going to be a few, like that condo with hotel characteristics issue, that an AMC may not be able to fully vet, and the lender needs to make sure that their internal staff understands that just because maybe the AMC has performed an automatic override, maybe it's going to still require vetting on the part of their underwriting department. So that's one option. They could say, we want you to override all of them. We'll vet them internally anyway. Or they could say, you know what, we don't want you to automatically override these that are a little stickier, that really require more input from our group. We're going to want you to consult with us prior, or maybe even submit and not have a successful SSR. So lots of different options there. That really depends upon the lender's chosen process.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, Beverly.
Yeah. All right. We have time for 2 more questions, and then we're going to have to close up the webinar. The next question, I have heard we will be receiving warning messages on the SSR reports before we will have access to the data in the CU website. Is this true?
Yeah, this is Jason. I can take that question. So it's our understanding and my understanding that if you're the direct seller to one of the GSEs, you will have access immediately to those messaging. If you aren't a direct seller, it appears that Fannie Mae is going to start phasing indirect sellers in at a later date, but we haven't been privy to when that's going to start and how long that's going to take to get all the non-direct sellers into their system to be able to see it. But if you're an indirect seller, you will still be able to see that SSR report, and that's going to have all of that messaging. The only thing that you're not going to be able to see are the additional sales list that Fannie would provide in the web interface.
Yeah, and keep in mind, as Jason has already noted, that the AMC won't have access to the web interface either. So there are certain things that an AMC can do to try to predict the additional comparables or the adjustment levels that Fannie Mae's model is going to show contradictions on. But there's no way that that an AMC can predict it exactly because we don't have access to the same model functionality, and we don't have access to the same comparable database or database of sales. So while an AMC should probably have a process to identify if there are nearby proximate sales that weren't used in the appraisal, more than likely they're not going to be able to predict with 100% certainty that those are the same sales that CU will identify.
Okay. And our last question, do you expect the new CU process to have a large impact on appraisers?
Well, if my daily emails of different industry blogs and websites and news publications could be taken literally, I would guess that this is basically, you know, the sky is falling, and that the appraiser's job will never be the same again. But, you know, in all reality, I anticipate that CU is going to have a large impact on a small segment of the appraiser population. Yes, it's going to impact appraisers who haven't necessarily been diligent in ensuring that they've got data integrity from report to report, and appraisers that haven't really paid attention to having, you know, detailed statistical analysis and support for adjustments in market trends. But really, I think everybody should keep in mind that behind the scenes, Fannie Mae's been running their model for quite a long time before they actually decided to release it as a product or a tool to their sellers. So, you know, appraisers that it's going to have a large impact from are probably already on notice from Fannie Mae that they're having issues with data integrity and or lack of proper statistical analysis and support. So I would anticipate that any major tremors are mitigated relatively quickly because of the fact that while CU is now going to start being used by lenders, it's been in use behind the scenes for a while, and I think that Fannie Mae has a good idea of who the bad actors that would be most highly affected are.
Okay, great. So I wanted to thank all three of our presenters, Kelly, Jason, and Mike. Thank you so much. Thank you, StreetLinks, for sponsoring this webinar and providing all this information to us. And again, like I had said before, we're going to be sending out a copy of the PowerPoint presentation tomorrow via email to all the people who registered. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for attending. And thanks again for another great webinar. I will see you on the next one. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.